Well, and I think if your money is in the market, we're in it for the long haul. That's
Yep,
that's the thing that I think we
absolutely.
get ourselves too caught up in is, oh my gosh, my money changed today. And it's like, that's fine that it changed today. It actually changes every day.
Yes.
It was a 2.5% drop in one day. Yes, that sounds big when we're looking at, especially when you're looking at bigger numbers. If you're looking at smaller numbers, it's not as big of a drop. But if you're looking at bigger numbers, you're like, oh crap, this was a lot of money, and it makes you feel like, wait a minute, you want to hold on tightly. And so people make rash decisions and they want to take their money out because they're concerned it's going to continue to go down.
That's the worst thing that people can do is
Absolutely.
take your money out when the market is down.
Welcome. This is For Better and Worth.
The podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all, let's get into it.
Hey, babe. How are you?
I'm doing good. We're back at it, talking about things that I think that matter to people.
And today, this should matter to everybody, or they're already thinking about it. So
It just feels like right now there's a crunch on everybody's personal finance and market and everything. I know I go to the grocery store and I'm like, man, these prices are a lot higher. I guess maybe I just didn't pay attention
that's the other thing is everybody is paying attention now. Whereas,
to everything.
yeah, to everything that they're spending money on that has increased in price, we're all like, whoa, wait a minute, hold on a second. And when
Like,
it's
what's going on with all of this stuff?
when it's increasing everywhere, the budget feels it like largely, right? So it's $10 here, $5 here, $20 here, $50 here. And then you're like, oh my gosh, everything is costing me personally in 30 days like $300 more.
I feel like people are saying, are we on the cusp of a recession, or like what's going on with inflation and everything, because interest rates are still relatively high, and I just don't know. I mean, I look at all the signs from the past and say, well, I remember when recessions hit and this is what led up to it, or this is what it felt like. But I don't know what's going on right now.
Yeah, I don't either. And honestly, I I think it's hard to predict these things.
Absolutely.
What we know is that this is an election year and things always go haywire. But we were already in an inflated place where
Right.
our
Right.
inflation is
Inflation was
high.
higher than it
Right.
had been in previous histories.
But people got scared when they saw the market tumble. Anytime, so like the conditions are ripe for craziness,
Hmm.
okay? But then when the market falls, everybody's like, "Oh crap.
Yeah, last
This
week.
is affecting my
Yeah,
money."
last week. August 5th was a market, blip.
Yeah. And so I think in that moment, because all these little things have been happening, and in a sense, we've gotten used to going to the grocery store and spending more money, or
Hmm.
we've gotten used to if you're going to buy a house, your interest rate is going to be higher. Like it's been happening for a while, but when the market tumbles overnight, people are like, oh crap,
Yeah, or
what's
not
going to
even
happen?
overnight, just in the course of one day. It's like, well,
Hmm.
what's going on?
Yeah.
But I think the whole point of us having this conversation is to kind of talk about some of the baseline things I think people really need to put in place so that when something comes up, you don't get moved by the market. Because I know just with us, I'll look at our accounts and see what's going on, be like, okay, what's the impact? And I don't think you ever go and look at them because we're long term investors, or
I
you
look at
do
the
it
big
rarely.
picture. I
Yeah,
look at the big picture. I don't look at the details as much as you do.
right. And I'll get into the details and see what's up, what's down, or do we need to shift and things like that. And I think it's good to have both of those.
Absolutely.
But I also think that people have to have some of their foundational things in place so that when the market shifts or changes, you don't overreact.
Well, and I think if your money is in the market, we're in it for the long haul. That's
Yep,
the thing that I think we
absolutely.
get ourselves too caught up in is, oh my gosh, my money changed today. And it's like, That's fine that it changed today. It actually changes every day.
Yes.
It was a 2.5% drop in one day. Yes, that sounds big when we're looking at, especially when you're looking at bigger numbers. If you're looking at smaller numbers, it's not as big of a drop. But if you're looking at bigger numbers, you're like, oh crap, this was a lot of money, and it makes you feel like, wait a minute, you want to hold on tightly, and so people make rash decisions and they want to take their money out because they're concerned it's going to continue to go down.
That's the worst thing that people can do is
Absolutely.
take your money out when the market is down. And I always ask people, I say, when do you want to go shopping? Well, when everything is on sale because you get the best price. And technically, when the market is down, everything is on sale because you're going to get the best price. So if you pull your money out of the market when it's on sale, you're going to experience the loss
Yep.
versus the gain. And losses only become final when you pull out of the market.
Absolutely. And so, in that regard, the best time to buy is when the market is low.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, okay,
It's kind of counterintuitive to people
it
when you
feels
think
that
about
way.
when you
Yeah.
think about the market, or if we're not talking about stocks, we're talking about maybe just mutual funds, because
Sure.
you got to have a different level of skill to, if you're going to choose to trade stocks, which is not something that we choose to do. We're a little more conservative in that way.
A lot more conservative.
But like when you think about, the market being down and a mutual fund that was, $70 per share is now, let's just say, $67. That's on sale.
Mm-hmm.
Because when all those shares go back to $70 that you bought at $67, that's $3 gain per share. And that's when you
Mm-hmm.
see those gains. But people do have to be invested for the long term.
Right.
That way you're not responsive to the ills and the highs and lows of the market, because over time, we know the market produces a gain. There's no 7-year period in the history of the stock market where it hasn't produced a gain.
Overall. And so, technically speaking, we are not financial advisors. We are not giving financial advice. But I want to state a fact is that when we see these drops in the market, they will recover. So we have been in the market long enough to have seen the drop on 9/11. And that took just 2 months to recover. And when you think about being in the market for decades over time, 2 months is a drop in the bucket. When in 2020, when the markets, when COVID hit and the markets dropped and everybody was worried, understandably so, the markets dropped 13%. Now, what we experienced last week was 2.5%. It dropped 13%.
That literally was a blip.
It was a blip, and it recovered in a few months.
You're talking about COVID. It dropped 13%.
It dropped 13% on that day when everybody was forced to stay home and everybody was worried and markets changed. And it took a couple months for that to recover. And so I do believe that what comes into play here is the media sensationalizing all these things. So granted, there are some things that happen, sure, and your money will drop. Yes, these could be real if you just let it, affect you and you pull it out.
From the market, yeah.
Right. But I think the media does a really good job of making us afraid.
Well,
I really do.
I go back to.
Do you disagree?
I think, people say a lot about the media.
Yeah.
But I have the stations I watch, and I kind of watch all of them to get multiple perspectives, because there's a lot of perspectives across different media outlets. But I think that's just, if you look at the news in general, there's not a lot of positive things on there.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just it kind of stokes some of those fears sometimes that people may have. But I just don't get moved by that stuff, because I go back to the housing crash of 2008. And I think about that and the ramifications of how people experience things when their largest asset, lost almost half its value.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about how long it took.
And we were affected.
Right. And I think about how long it took us to recover from that. But we recovered. We recovered. And that's the thing, is that, you got to just, when we're talking about investing, and I talk about foundation, that's why we say you got to be out of debt. Because when you are out of debt and you don't have those obligations, your mindset changes around a lot of things. And when you have built up an emergency fund of 6 to 12 months, your mindset changes about a lot of things when you don't have debt, you got cash on hand, and when you are investing for the long term. Knowing that those funds that you have in investment and retirement accounts, you're not going to touch them until you retire. You can't be moved by the ills and wills of the market because it will cause you to make choices that can be even greater, have greater detriment to you than the blip we may see in the market.
Right. And I think we have to have a long-term perspective. I really do.
Absolutely.
And that is what getting out of debt can afford you, is a shift in mindset from the immediate, oh no, I got to pay this bill, to this long-term perspective. And I think the other thing that is challenging right now is the concern about, are people going to begin to get laid off? Right.
Yeah.
So our unemployment rate is pretty darn low. It's like right around 4.2%. And that's good. We've seen it at 8%. We've seen it higher, but it's kind of low. But people are concerned it's about to go
I
up.
think there's a lot of uncertainties that people have because it is an election year, and no matter where you fall on which candidate you support, people have a lot of thoughts about where we're going to be and where the economy is going to be. But I think I go back to the same thing I started with. Foundation, when your foundation is secure and set, it can take you and you can endure a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, when you have a foundation built on concrete and it's in a good place, you can build on that. And that's why it's those fundamental things that people have to take an assessment as to where they're at. Like, okay, let me decide where I'm at today. Do I have a solid foundation that I'm working with? And when circumstances outside of my control arise, how will I respond?
And if people will ask that question of themselves right now, like for instance, if one or both jobs in your household were to be gone quickly due to an unexpected layoff, what would happen to your finances? How would you pivot or shift? Do you have 3 to 6 months of expenses as an emergency fund? What would it look like? And people don't want to think about that. That's the honest truth. They don't want to think about that. But you've been laid off, right? Like, this has happened. You have been a great employee for several different companies, and you've experienced that.
I experienced a couple of layoffs.
Right.
And I remember the first one, I don't even know if I can call it a layoff. I was out of work for a month, you know.
But we were in debt. And we did not have 3 months.
Yeah, and I think the stress of it was a little more. It was more
different.
urgent to get employment at that time. I mean, the second time I experienced a layoff, first of all, I got a very generous severance, but then we also had money saved where if I chose to, I could have stayed off work for over a year to look for the right opportunity. But fortunately, that's not what it didn't take that long for me to find another opportunity. But that's what I'm talking about. We went from a high sense of urgency where you needed to get employment, and that changes your decision-making process because you might take something to get it now versus waiting and getting something better. And I know that the second time I experienced that, it was like, I'm not taking just anything. I'm going to take my time and land on the thing that aligns with where I want to go and what I want to do and where I want to be.
And you had that freedom to do that.
Absolutely.
Because we weren't in debt and we had money saved and you got a severance.
Yep.
And so you weren't slack at all. You were out there looking and hustling, trying to find a job, but you weren't, like you said, you weren't just going to take anything, and you wanted to make certain it was the right thing. And frankly, you kept looking. Once you did get a job, you were like, you know what? There's something more that I want.
Yeah.
And so you for a whole nother year and a half internally, you were looking for that next best thing as well.
Yeah, that's a good point you make because I've been able to progress where I'm at because I made the right choice about the company that I joined.
Right.
But that's because we had a foundation that was set, and that's where I want to challenge people who are listening to this is to take stock at where you're at today, because it doesn't matter where you're at because you can start. You can, if your foundation isn't where you think it needs to be, you can begin to adjust that. If you have debt, focus on getting rid of the debt. If you don't have that emergency fund saved up, begin focusing on that emergency fund. But you have to just take it in stride. You got to take steps to get there. And once you accomplish one, move to the next one, and so on and so forth until you stop and you look and say, okay, no debt, emergency fund set, investing for the long term, making good, sound financial decisions and what you choose to do and how you choose to spend money. Because even after you get out of debt and have an emergency fund, you still have to be judicious in what you do and how you go about doing it.
So I'm thinking about when people are uncertain about the security of their job, right? And what it looks like to wonder, is the writing on the wall? And it makes me think about, a lot of folks know there's usually rumbling internally, but one of the things that a friend of ours experienced in his job, he knew that some change was on the horizon, and he protected you from trying to take a job at a company,
Yeah, I remember that.
where change was on the horizon, because not only did he protect you, but eventually that change came to him and his job, right? And so I think the other thing is, keep your wits about you. Like, look around, pay attention.
Read the signs, read the tea leaves.
Yes, like if you are in a product business, are they buying? Okay, is something going on with that industry? If you're in a service business, is something shifting within that industry? Are you on the cutting edge, or are you behind the times? Like, there are different things that you can be looking at. And even as an entrepreneur, I feel like sometimes that's a challenge for me. I coached for so long, like 100% coaching for so long, that I would say probably I got stuck in a rut. Like, I enjoyed it, but I found myself, I could get tired, and it's very draining. And it's like, well, what's happening out in the world? What do these people want? What's going on? And
Right.
so then I had to really
You
shift
had to
and
shift your business.
yeah, and almost reinvent myself, and then figure out what I could bring to the market that's different or unique that they will pay for. And so I think we all have to go through those moments where it's like, well, what is happening around us? Does it really need to affect how we do business or how we do life, or is this the place we need to be for our job? And make those decisions for yourself versus waiting until the outside circumstances make you
Yeah.
change.
People can look at what's going on with the economy and the job market, and like you said, unemployment is low right now, and we know that there are a lot of places that need workers, that need knowledge workers and things like that. And it's one of those things where if you feel like where you're at is unsteady, like I continue to say, take a pause and look at where the hot sectors are. And if there's a gap in skills, while you're looking, maybe you start to make preparation to upskill, to transition from one industry to another or one market to another. And I think that's where people have to be constantly assessing where they're at. And if you feel uncertainty about, your current employment, maybe look and see where the competitors are, if there's a better opportunity to be at a competitor. Or like I said, shift industries and upskill and see where hot markets are, and then try and chase or pursue those things. I don't like to say chase.
Why?
I'd rather people pursue. Because I feel like if you're pursuing something, you're putting effort behind it. You're going after it methodically, looking at what is going to be the best thing for you. Because one thing I'll tell you, I've said it to so many people, you work for You Incorporated. And you have to think about the best thing that's going to benefit you. Because corporations, they will make shifts, they will make changes, they will make layoffs, and they'll keep moving forward. And so when you're thinking about how you take care of, your house, your four walls, your family, you have to always be thinking about what's going to be the best decision for me to make to move, you Incorporated forward. And that may mean shifting companies, shifting industries, or if you're at a company that you feel good about, look for the hot areas there, the opportune areas there, and develop your skill sets and build your network to branch out and get in some of those areas.
Sometimes I think about what is the worst thing that people can do if they are worried about an impending recession or they are worried about what is going on in the economy. And I'm going to say that the worst thing that somebody can do, no matter what that decision is to make a permanent choice from a temporary situation. So even if we're in a recession, even if right now we're going into a recession or it lasts for 6 months or 2 years, whatever it is, if you're making a permanent choice based on this season of a recession, that's a problem. I feel like that's a mistake. And that is going back to when you said what you don't need to do is pull your money out of the market right now.
Oh no,
Or
that's the
what
worst decision.
right, and you don't necessarily want to sell your house if eventually you were wishing that you stayed in one and you can't find another one, right?
Yeah, because if you
Or
sell a house, you still have to have housing, so you got to go somewhere else.
right. So think long term. And I read this book. I don't remember what it was called, but sometimes you think about your decisions in terms of 30 days, 60 days, 5 years, 12 years, whatever it is. If you only think about it in the right now today, you're missing the bigger picture of what that decision could be 10 years from now. And I think about if I pull out my money out of the market to go put it somewhere safer, the difference in what I would have earned in that 10-year span because I decided to go put it in a 3% return money market versus staying in or a 3%, 3% money market versus staying in mutual
Mutual
funds
funds.
invested, that are mimicking the S&P 500. That could be 12%. That's a 9% spread that I'm missing out. Let's just say it's
That's big gains. That's big gains that you'd be
$100,000
missing.
over 10
Yeah, that's
years.
big gains.
That could be, we're talking $10,000 that you're missing out on just if we just say it's a 10% difference, right? Just that's simple math. I don't think it goes that way because it's compound interest. But whatever the case, I don't want to miss out on 10 grand. Period. Right. And so is it worth it? That's the whole thing. It's like don't make a permanent decision on a temporary circumstance because then you can't recover from that.
So what you're saying is people need to count the costs and look at things overall so when they do make a decision, it's not a negative impacting decision long term.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, I think you were talking about the job market, and people can do crazy things when there's layoffs or there's fear. And one thing that I would hate to see people do is to potentially get laid off and you have 401k money and choose to cash it out.
Yeah.
Do not do that. Roll that money over into the next vehicle because that money is going to do you so much more benefit longer term. And I know that we're assuming that people have, their general needs met and there's not struggles with just making your monthly needs, meeting those needs because that can cause people to make a lot of different decisions when they're not getting their normal needs met. And that's when people start to cash those retirement vehicles out. And we just want to see people win.
And when you do that, not only do you get taxed on it, but you also get a penalty of 10%.
On top of it, yep.
And now they're talking about removing that 10% penalty, which I honestly disagree with because I feel like that's a deterrent for a lot of people.
It keeps people from doing it.
Yeah, they're saying, oh, if it's an emergency, well, define emergency. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's so subjective and it's different for everybody. And that's hard. But anyway, the point is pulling it out of the market is don't do it. Just don't do it.
I think at the heart of what we're saying is like, make good sound decisions today as you lead into long term and just look at the implications of what you're choosing to do and how it can impact, your whole outcome.
I also think that when you're at a job, just remember they are thinking about themselves. The CEOs, the higher ups, those in leadership, they're thinking about the health of the business overall. And sometimes we are just pawns in that chess game. And so we always think, oh, they care about us. They, and to some
I don't
degree,
think every company is like that.
I know. Okay. So, and that's fine to disagree. I feel like they are concerned with their bottom lines, their initiatives, and what it is that they want is very different from what it is that you want. You want stability. You want, typically,
Absolutely.
as an employee,
Absolutely.
you want to make sure that you're going to continue to get your benefits. You want to enjoy the work that you do. You want to know that you're around people where you can be yourself. But they are concerned with their bottom line. You are not always concerned with the bottom line of the company making a profit. Your goals and the way that you are showing, the reason you're showing up to work is not to make sure that the company's bottom line succeeds. Your goal is to like do your actual job. Sure, it all goes to that point,
Yeah, absolutely. And
but I
that's
think
where I'm saying, like, I think that's why I tell people you have to take care of, you work for you incorporated.
right, they have to think about their own
You have to make
economy.
decisions that are going to help move you forward. I think we all understand that corporations have to make decisions certain ways because they have shareholders, they have people that they're accountable to. And I don't agree with all the decisions that major corporations make. But I do think that there are companies that have the heart of their employees, and they have those people in mind, and they take interest in them because corporations can't do what they do without employees.
Right. I agree with that. But what I will say is the reason why layoffs occur is because they have to shift something in the
Yes.
business.
Yep.
So at some point, if a layoff is occurring, they're doing it for the bigger, broader picture.
Labor is a very large line item.
Yes. So while we understand that, like we can get that perspective, that's not the perspective that's causing us to come to work. And so we're not in control of it. We're literally not in control of the decisions that are made at the higher up. So if that big part of the profit and loss for that business is the employees and they have to figure out how to get their books to balance at the end of the year and layoffs occur, then that's where you have to say like while they might care for folks and all of that kind of stuff, we can't depend on the fact that, oh, this is going to be a secure job just because they care about me. That's not always true.
I think that's where man, this is kind of a point counterpoint. It's kind of a debate here. But I think that's where I focus less on the corporation and I focus more on you that is watching this video or that is
Agreed.
listening to this podcast,
Agreed.
because the decisions that we as individuals make is going to help us better respond to a decision that a corporation might make.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we eliminate debt,
Yes.
which we've done,
Yes.
and I'm encouraging other people to do, and if we begin to build a cushion or create margin in your personal finances with an emergency fund, and when you're investing for retirement, if you're doing these fundamental things, I think it helps when some of this occurs.
Mm-hmm.
If you get laid off or if a company responds, it just helps you to respond differently because you're thinking about what do I need to do to continue to move forward.
Right. And I just spoke with someone a couple of weeks ago who worked for a company and they didn't feel like the decisions that were being made were the decisions that she could align with anymore. And she was having a hard, so she was looking for another job. And sometimes in those situations, you're also not, because you either disagree or there's some dissension or there's some challenge with the way that you're able to deliver on the work that you're supposed to perform, it gets contentious. And I think
I
by
think
and large,
that's why people choose to go to work for companies that have purpose or mission that align with their personal goals
but
and
people leave
objectives.
jobs because of their boss. They leave jobs because of the work that they're doing is monotonous and not, fulfilling them. And so the broader purpose of the company is wonderful,
Yeah.
but they're not coming to work for that. They're coming every day. They work with a team or they work for a boss or they perform a task or a service. And if that gets to be in conflict with who they are, again, if you have debt and you don't have an emergency fund, then you may feel like you're going to work literally for the man. Like it's like, and so these are reasons. All I'm getting at is that the economy can be a reason that people choose to leave a job, or their company lays off, or they're in a situation where they feel like they got to show up to work even though it is in direct conflict with how they want to live their life. You know what I mean? Like if they could, they would argue with their boss every day just because of their personalities clash.
But I
These kinds
think
of things.
I think that's also like some of this advice we give our kids.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you got to see things through for a period of time, until you can affect the change that you're looking for.
And this is why when you have debt and you have no emergency fund, you can't
cannot
get
make
up
those
and
choices.
leave.
That's
Right.
what I'm saying.
Right. And that's the thing. I'm just sharing a different place where it could be coming up, where it's not necessarily the economy. It could simply be the job.
Yeah, I think we're talking about a recession. If it's a true recession, I think it changes people's mindsets about their job, because people want to hold on to what they have as a guarantee.
Or they think they can hold on. I don't think that people know that they can hold on.
I don't know if they can. I mean, because a true recession that takes us down a negative path, companies can tend to lay people off or do that. But in that moment, I think people tend to try and hold on to what they have.
Yeah.
And they could be looking for something else. So I think we could clearly debate this for a while.
Well, we're not debating. I think we're just seeing a different side.
Yeah. I personally don't lean so much into the comings and goings of the corporation.
And that's why I feel like the reason is because you don't have to.
Well, and that's the whole point that I'm making.
Right.
Is that when you don't have to, then you get to.
Yeah.
So because I don't have to, I get to do something different.
Yeah.
And I want for others the same thing that I can experience for myself.
Yes.
And so that's why I'm pushing and I'm passionate about make choices and decisions that are going to help you get to.
Yeah.
Versus make you have to.
Right.
And so when you get to, your mindset is different. And that's where I want people to be. Mm-hmm. That's when you talk about the FIRE movement or the FIRE community, they get to, because they made a decision to do things differently so they didn't have to. Mm-hmm. And I think when you stop and you get to the bottom line of it, if it's a recession, truly, we all have to make decisions that are going to impact our lives and our families. But before there was a recession, if we were doing the things that we needed to, when that recession hits, that's when you get to make different decisions. Mm-hmm. And so I would ask you, how would you say, if there's a potential recession on the horizon, what would make it worth it for people to do to come out of it, on the other side positively?
Two things. One is, you mentioned it, and I'll just reiterate, think about your own personal economy. Don't, like, the broader economy, things are happening. They're going to continue to happen, but shore up your personal economy, your household, what's going on inside, so that you can have a solid foundation. And the other thing is, I would say, I know this sucks, but like, look at the worst case scenario. Like, okay, what would you actually do if you lost your job? Like, or if you wanted to walk away from the job, what are the things that would need to change? And those are the goals that you probably need to set right now. So things are going to be uncertain for a while anyway. We already know. We already mentioned that things are going to be uncertain because it's the political climate right now. But if you could fast forward and say, what if we were? What would you change in your finances so that you are doing what you need to do to prepare? That's all I would say. If I were in debt, I might say, you know what, let me hurry up and make sure either I pay some of this stuff off real quick, or I increase my emergency fund and let me get to a certain place. Maybe some stuff got to come out of order in order for me to make sure I have an emergency fund. But think about what it is in your household that you need to do to create a more solid foundation.
Okay.
What about you, babe?
I'm going to keep it real simple. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready.
True.
So stay ready. Get your house in order. Get your business in line. And make decisions that are going to help you long term. A Louis today is not what you need to do
Woo.
for the long term.
Oh, he just said that.
Look, you got to make decisions today that are going to put you in position that when you want to buy a Louis in the future, it's not a detriment.
There you go.
Or it's not a negative impact.
Mhm.
Or whatever your Louis may be.
Mhm.
Because people have things that they put money in and stock in that they see the value of it today, but it's causing a financial issue or compromise today when you can put yourself in a position to do that in the future where it's not a compromise or a financial stress. So I keep it real simple. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. So
Facts.
start making decisions that keep you ready today so you can respond with whatever comes your way.
Awesome.
And so
he dropped the mic. He dropped the pen. The pen is the mic.
yeah, I can't really slap the mic or, let me do that.
Dropping mics around here. Well, good job. I think that's good. Hopefully this was helpful. I think that, no matter what season we're in, our advice is typically the same. You know what I mean? It's just, and so think about that in this moment, and don't let the outside circumstances affect you so much that it makes you afraid.
Stay ready, people.
That's right. Stay ready. So
until next time,
we're out.
Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on forbetterandworth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.